Much is going on there. Ben Smith, your latest piece for Semaphore is titled How Trump's Politics Returned to Earth. And in it, you write in part, Trump's political standing, which has evolved over just a few months from dominant to desperate, is a good reminder of a few things conventional wisdom has gotten wrong. Remember the deepfake panic? Last year, many were convinced American politics would be destabilized by videos manipulated by artificial intelligence or lulled into a post-truth stupor by AI slop. But it turns out that the political story of 2026 has been real videos on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. The files related to the investigation of the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein are an oil spill oozing through global politics and discrediting elites and would-be counter-elites alike. Trump's other early source of power last year was a cowed media. The Washington Post, with its rapid pivot toward a Trump-curious editorial posture, seemed to be a case in point. However, the Post is a cautionary tale for two reasons. First, the publication appears to have fired its audience without acquiring a new one. And second, while owner Jeff Bezos may have protected his space company from presidential retaliation, there is no sign the Post won any benefits from the president or his movement. A whole bunch of different messages here. And it crosses a lot of industries, Ben. If you stand up to him, you stand to do better. And secondly, the one thing I would counterpoint with you is that it does appear that the public has been inured to a lot of behavior, to a lot of things that would never pass muster in previous lifetimes are now just slowly going by without any accountability. And I even talk about the ICE raids. We try and report on them. We try and follow on these stories where people are being held in detention centers and you can't find them. And some of them are U.S. citizens. Some of them are not. Either way, their rights are being violated. And there's outcry. There's reaction. But there's no accountability, literally none. Who's been fired?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are deep changes to the country that aren't going away, and,
right.
and to people's tolerance. I mean, the other is for members of the president's family just making enormous amounts of money.
Enormous.
And I do think that a lot of that damage, a lot of that change is probably permanent. But it's also true that Trump has gone. There was this sense early on that, wow, he can get away with this stuff politically. His party's not going to be damaged by it. He's not going to be damaged by it. We're in this kind of new era where no rules apply. Mm-hmm. And I think that's not true anymore. He's very unpopular. His party is panicked about the midterms. And there's not a sense that Americans actually like this stuff.
I know. I'm always looking at the negative. Joe, jump in.
Yes, you are. John Lemire, I want you to take the next question to Ben, but the Washington Post was brought up as by Ben, and he's so right. They fired their audience. They didn't acquire a new one.
Great.
They've still done some good investigative reporting, but at times they've also been far too. Well, let's just say they've tipped their hand far too many times. Trying not to upset Donald Trump. But let's look at a case study of what does work in the Trump era. And we brought it up the other day, the Wall Street Journal. What Emma Tucker has done. Every single day, it seems, there is a new story. And these are Pulitzer-worthy stories. There is a new story detailing how the Trump family is getting richer from dealings with oligarchs, getting richer from dealings with other countries. You could go down the line. But Wall Street Journal, day in and day out, they're doing that kind of reporting. It's kind of like what Farenthold did in the 2016 campaign, following the money. You look at the Wall Street Journal's editorial page. Also, again, I bring this up because this is a Murdoch-owned company. The editorial page, we don't agree. I don't agree with what they say a lot of the times. But, man, when it comes to holding Donald Trump to constitutional norms and political norms, they've been right there. And what's happened? Their business is going up. I mean, I think the number of subscriptions have gone up at least 10, 15% since Tucker became the editor. There's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it. And if you do it the way the Washington Post does it, you end up with a shell of a once great institution.
Yeah, and there's no question. There are still some very good reporters there doing good work, particularly covering the agencies at the Washington Post. But like a third, almost by some estimates, nearly half of the staff let go. Just a bad day, not just for that paper, but for the city of Washington, for the country. But you're right. There are some media organizations that are thriving. The New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, The Atlantic, among them, who are doing really, really good work. And Ben, we love to check in with you every so often for the state of the media. You're so good at this. It does feel like an inflection point. I mean, the Washington Post is a self-inflicted wound, right? Jeff Bezos, he could afford to pay these people. He chose not to. He has other interests in mind. Although, as you write, it's not clear he's received really any benefits, though he's perhaps been spared Trump's wrath. But there, there are already so many external challenges to the media business right now. But it does feel like there's still some outlets that are looking at Trump and are scared of what he could do, even though there has been a successful model shown. You can just simply do the work.
Yeah, and I think Joe's totally right. The Journal and Rupert Murdoch, for all the probably deserved criticism he gets through the years, clearly understands that the relationship between a successful publication and political power isn't just to do whatever the president wants. It doesn't get you anything, and that the media sort of has its own source of power.
We've seen CBS's ratings fall too.
Yeah, I think one way to look at it though is Trump has been pretty unsuccessful attacking places like the New York Times, like the Atlantic directly, and where he's been successful is when these things like CBS are parts of big conglomerates, and he can find leverage somewhere else and go after them, find leverage in their attempt, to buy Warner. And that's really, what CBS, what the CBS's bosses are worried about, and they're willing to sacrifice the news to some degree to get something else done. And I think that's, to me, like the big takeaway for in this moment. It's not always true, and it changes. Is that kind of independence is really important.
The new piece is available to read online now. Co-founder and editor-in-chief of Semafor, Ben Smith. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Willie.